Welcome to Wawasan Wire. Today we're talking about Muhyiddin's detailed pledges for a better Sabah.
And it's quite a list to talk about. The Perikatan National Chairman, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, didn't just put out a few ideas. He unveiled this massive platform. I think it was 159 commitments.
159. Yeah, that number alone is it's staggering. It feels less like a simple manifesto and, more like a full 5-year budget plan.
It really does. It suggests a very deep structural intention. And the strategy here seems to be all about specificity.
Right.
These aren't just, vague promises about improving infrastructure. They're very, very targeted commitments aimed right at the people who are struggling the most.
So we're talking about the B40 low-income families.
Exactly, the bottom 40%. And also those living in, well, the geographically challenging parts of Sabah, the remote and often marginalized communities.
So, for anyone listening, you probably don't need to read all 159 promises to get the main idea. Our goal here is to really pull out the big ones, the commitments that mean the most financially and the ones that guarantee big changes in areas like education and healthcare.
I think we should start with the money, the immediate financial relief. That's the policy that's gotten the most attention, mainly because of the very specific, and I should say generous, figure that's attached to it.
Okay, so the cornerstone promise, this is the big one. Substantial annual cash assistance. The declaration guarantees RM 4,800 a year, paid directly to poor families.
And 4,800 ringgit is a very significant cash transfer. When you listen to the way Muhyiddin framed it, this cash aid was positioned as a necessary and firm commitment.
To do what exactly?
To help with the burden of rising living costs. For someone living in a remote kampung, where just getting basic goods is already more expensive, that amount is designed to be a real safety net.
That's almost RM 400 a month, just, injected straight into a family's budget. When you think about the struggle to make ends meet, especially far from the big cities, it's a tangible buffer. But I have to ask,
Is it sustainable?
yeah, is cash assistance the most sustainable solution? Or is this more of a political move for, immediate relief?
And that's the critical question, isn't it? Economically, direct cash transfers are often the quickest way to get money moving in local economies.
Yeah.
And politically, they're highly visible. People feel the benefit right away.
Okay.
Muhyiddin's whole emphasis on not letting people be economically marginalized suggests they see this as an immediate, necessary intervention. And they're not waiting for long-term economic plans to maybe trickle down into those remote areas.
The immediate need is the priority, in their view.
It seems so, yes.
I get the focus on the traditionally poor, but I was also really interested to see something in the manifesto about the modern workforce. There was specific aid for young people in the gig economy.
Yes. This is where the platform shows it's kind of up to date. They're recognizing that the economy isn't just plantations and factories anymore.
Right.
The plan sets aside RMN 2.5 million every year to help 5,000 young people who work in motorcycle delivery services.
Delivery riders, specifically. Why that group in Sabah?
Well, because the gig economy, especially delivery, just exploded, didn't it? Particularly after the pandemic. For a lot of young people, it's a critical source of income. So targeting 5,000 of them, it's a signal.
A signal to younger voters.
I think so. It tells them that the proposed government understands their reality, that a side hustle on a bike is a real job that deserves real state support, which is maybe something previous governments might have just ignored.
So you have this two-pronged approach. Massive cash aid for the rural poor, and then this very specialized, smaller aid for the urban, modern workforce.
Exactly. It acknowledges that the economic struggles in Sabah are, well, they're multifaceted. You can't just have a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay, let's pivot from cash to long-term investment, education. It's always the key to bridging that huge urban-rural divide in Sabah.
And this really is the centerpiece of their long-term vision. The declaration commits to setting up a Sabah education fund, and it's backed by a huge allocation, RM 300 million over 5 years.
Wow, RM 300 million, that is serious capital.
It is.
So with a fund that big, the question is always, who benefits? How do you make sure the money doesn't just get lost in bureaucracy?
The intention is very clear on this. The fund is laser-focused on students from B40 families and those in remote areas. These are the students who face isolation, poor infrastructure, and, financial pressures that often make them drop out.
So can you break down how that RM 300 million actually helps a student in, say, the interior? What are the mechanisms?
Okay, so there are 3 critical parts. First is transport support for students who need to travel to hostels. You have to remember the distances in Sabah. It can be a long and expensive trip just to get to school. Second, aid for digital learning equipment, a laptop, a tablet. If you don't have one in a remote area, you're at a huge disadvantage. This fund is meant to close that gap.
And the third.
Free tutoring, specifically for students from needy families, which is so important to help them catch up if their foundational schooling wasn't strong.
That seems very well thought out. I also saw they had direct subsidies for students taking their major exams.
They did. And this shows a real understanding of the financial anxiety families feel. Students sitting for SPM, STPM, and STAM will get a specific subsidy of RM250.
Now, RM250 might not sound like a fortune, but for a struggling family, that could cover registration fees, a study guide, maybe travel to the exam center. It removes that one little barrier.
Exactly. These exams are high-stakes moments. They can determine a kid's entire future. So removing that financial stress at that critical time is a powerful signal of support.
And even before the exams, they're targeting Year 1 students, a foundational learning guarantee.
This might be the most strategic part of the whole education plan. The manifesto promises a program to make sure every single year, one student masters reading, writing, and arithmetic.
The 3 R's.
The 3 R's, and they're providing basic stationery too. It's so fundamental. If a child doesn't get those basics right at the start, every year after that is a struggle. This is targeting the root cause of educational inequality.
A very smart approach. Okay, that brings us to our third area, mobility and healthcare. Both huge issues in Sabah because of the geography. Let's start with the one every Sabah family talks about, the cost of flights.
Ah, yes. The ultimate pain point, the cost of flying over the South China Sea. If you have a child studying in peninsular Malaysia or even overseas, the price of a ticket home for holidays is just astronomical.
It's a huge financial strain. So the proposal is a RM1000 annual flight subsidy for these students. Is that enough, though?
Well, that's the real debate, isn't it? RM1000 is a significant help, and it's definitely better than nothing. But you have to remember, during peak season, like Hari Raya or Christmas, a return ticket can easily be over RM1500, maybe even RM2000.
So it doesn't cover the whole cost?
Not always, but it addresses the emotional and cultural strain. It makes that decision to fly home for a family event much, much less of a financial punishment. It's an acknowledgement of that sacrifice.
It shows they understand that unique burden. Okay, let's move to healthcare, the Sabah Care program. What's new here, especially for remote communities?
The whole program seems designed to get around those geographical hurdles. It includes mobile checkup services, so actual medical teams going out to remote villages without permanent clinics.
That's critical for early detection.
Absolutely. And second, it guarantees basic treatment for chronic disease patients. Things like diabetes or hypertension, which can completely devastate a poor family's finances if they're not managed.
And, like with education, they've connected healthcare back to students. There's a specific commitment for school children.
Yes. Free testing for students with vision or hearing problems. And crucially, they also promise to provide the equipment for free glasses or hearing aids.
That's a brilliant connection. You can have the best education fund in the world, but if a child can't see the whiteboard
or hear the teacher, all that investment is wasted. This is about removing the physical barriers to learning, and the state foots the bill.
It really feels like the whole philosophy behind all 159 pledges is just practical, tangible help, starting from the ground up.
That's exactly how it was framed. Muhyiddin said the manifesto came directly from the people's voices and grassroots expectations. And he really emphasized that these are not empty promises. The whole thing is designed to look like a plan that's ready to go on day one.
So if we just step back and look at the big picture, we have high cash aid, that RM 4,800, hitting the poorest households. We have this huge RM 300 million fund to rebuild education, and then essential support like the RM 1,000 flight subsidy.
It's an incredibly comprehensive platform. But of course, that brings up the ultimate question. Feasibility, accountability.
Yeah.
A 159-point plan needs a huge amount of coordination and money to actually work in a state as complex as Sabah.
For sure. The pressure to deliver on something that specific is immense. They've given the exact ringgit amounts. They've described the mechanisms. The political risk is that the people of Sabah now have a checklist.
They absolutely do. And they'll be unforgiving if the implementation falls short. So you, the listener, have to ask yourself, which of these promises, the cash aid, the education fund, the support for delivery riders, which one will actually be the hardest to pull off, and which one would make the biggest difference in your daily life?
That level of detail, right down to a RM250 exam subsidy, it's an accountability roadmap as much as it is a political platform.
It certainly is. It sets a very, very high bar for any future administration.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.